Hey guys, welcome back. Today on The Untidy Artist, I'm doing a melt and pour soap tutorial. I'll be showing you how to make these beautiful snowflake shaped pieces of soap. Melt and pour soap is just a basic soap base that you cut up and you melt either in the microwave or over your stovetop. And to that base, you can add whatever beautiful colors and fragrances you'd like. So today I'll be showing you how I make these gorgeous snowflake shaped pieces of soap. These are perfect for gift giving and perfect for the holidays coming up. So let's grab some supplies and get started. Now the first thing you're going to need is your soap base. You can purchase melt and pour soap at just about any craft store. It normally comes in 2-pound blocks. Today we'll be using 3 pounds of soap, so you'll need 1 block plus a half a block for 3 pounds total. I'll be using clear melt and pour soap base. I'll also be using a tiny bit of white because I didn't have quite enough of the clear. I buy mine in bulk, so I've already cut this into little pieces. I buy it in big blocks and cut it all up and put it in Ziploc baggies so I'm ready when I want to do a melt and pour soap. So like I said, I've got 3 pounds of the melt and pour soap, and just a little bit of it is the white soap, just to make sure that I had enough soap for this tutorial. It also added a fun element to our soap. The next thing you're going to need is fragrance oil. Now you can use essential oil. I'll put notes for that in the comments below. I'm using this yummy peppermint candy from Wholesale Supplies Plus. And then if you'd like to color your soap, you'll need something to color it with. So I'll be using this gorgeous mica from Mad Oils. This one's called Spicy Tomato, and it's just a really pretty red, almost a burgundy red. And then to that, I'm going to be adding a really bright pink color called Voodoo, and it gives me a really nice, more of a burgundy red, but I really like it. It's just a very deep red. So we'll be mixing these two together. And then I'll be using some white mica. This is just really pretty and shimmery. And I'll also be using some glitter because glitter is fabulous. And if I could glitter my whole life with this, I would. Sparkle Plenty from Mad Oils is probably my favorite glitter to use in soaps. It's also biodegradable, so another bonus for that. Then we'll need a mold. So I found these molds at my local kitchen supply store. I will put a link below if I can find them online. These are actually used for making little brownies or cakes, and they're silicone molds and they work like a dream for melt and pour soap. Then I've got my trusty scale that's been tattered and used, and I'll be using this to measure out my ingredients. I'll also put measurements below for cups and tablespoons if you don't have a scale. And then I've got some 91% alcohol and some measuring spoons. A couple of spoons I stole from my kitchen that we'll be using to stir things. I have 2 little paper cups that I'm going to be mixing my mica in, and then I have 2 bowls. One is an 8-cup big glass measuring cup, and the other one holds about 4 cups. We want one that's bigger because we're going to be dividing up our soap and coloring it with 2 different colors. So let's get started. The first thing I do is I set my bowl on my scale, and then I make sure I zero it out, and then I'm going to measure in my 48 ounces of soap, or 3 pounds of soap. And you can see I come up just a little bit short here with the clear. So I'm going to grab my white and I'm going to add just enough to give me 48 ounces. And I was just a tiny bit short here. I did add a tiny bit more to this. So here I've got my full 48 ounces, and I'm going to put all of the solid white and fill up the cup, the rest of the cup. This is a 4-cup measuring cup with my clear. And it's not exact. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you don't completely fill it up, it's fine. But I've got the majority of my melt and pour soap in my bigger bowl, and then my white with a little bit of the melt and pour soap in my smaller bowl. And then I'm going to take about a teaspoon or 2 of rubbing alcohol, and I'm going to pour this into my little cups. This does evaporate out of your soap, so don't worry about it. It's just going to help us mix our mica into our soap. So I've got about 2 teaspoons of my rubbing alcohol in my cup, and to that I'm going to add some mica. Now I'm using 1/4 of a teaspoon measurement, so I put in 2 scoops of that, which gives me 1/2 teaspoon of my Voodoo, so my beautiful pink color. And then I'm going to add 2 scoops of my spicy tomatoes. So I've got a half teaspoon of the Voodoo, a half teaspoon of the spicy tomato, so a full teaspoon of my mica. And then I needed just a little bit more of the rubbing alcohol in with my mica so that it will all mix together, because we don't want any big clumps of mica in our soap. So if we mix it together with the rubbing alcohol, it helps disperse all of that beautiful mica into our soap evenly. So you can see it's all stirred together. I don't have any clumps of the mica. And you can see how just gorgeous and red and sparkly this mica looks. Then I'm going to mix up my glitter with my white mica. So I'm taking my Sparkle Plenty, which is my absolute favorite, and I'm actually putting 2 scoops of that in. So I've got a half teaspoon of my Sparkle Plenty. And then I'm actually just going to add 1/4 of a teaspoon of my white mica. And then just like I did with the red, I'm going to swirl that together. I just kind of spin it around in the cup. You can also grab a spoon and stir that if that's easier. And you can see how just absolutely beautiful and sparkly this mica is. It's going to add a really fun shimmery element to our soap. Okay, the next step is to measure out our fragrance oil. So I'm going to put this little cup on my scale, and I'm measuring in 1.5 ounces. And what we're doing is we're getting all of the things that we need for our soap prepared so that we can assemble it all at once. So I've got my fragrance oil measured out, and I've got my color measured out, and I've got my soap cut up and put in my bowls, and I'm going to melt it down. So I'm going to put my soap in the microwave for 1 minute, and then I take it out and stir it, and then I put it in for 30-second intervals and stir it in between until it's melted. Now I actually pull it out of the microwave when there's still a tiny piece of soap that hasn't melted completely, and I just continue stirring it until that piece melts down. You don't want to cook your soap. It can burn it, and then it smells terrible and your soap will be ruined. So we don't want that. So just do it very slowly, 30-second intervals. Just keep taking it out and stirring it until it's nice and melted. And then we're ready to add our mica. So I just took my red mica that we'd already mixed up ahead of time with the rubbing alcohol, and I'm going to pour it into my clear soap. So the bowl that had the larger amount of the melt and pour soap in it, and I'm going to stir it. Now you want to make sure it's stirred really well so all of that mica disperses through your soap. Then I grabbed my little spray bottle and I just kind of sprayed the inside of the cup to get any of the mica that was still stuck in the cup out, because we want to be able to use all of that gorgeous mica in our soap. And then once that's nice and stirred, I'm going to add my white. So I just kind of stir that up a little bit to loosen it up, pour that in, and then we're going to give that a good stir. And you can see once again I grabbed my spray bottle and I just kind of sprayed the inside of the cup. It loosens up that last little bit of mica and glitter. A great tip for melt and pour soap is to make sure that maybe every 30 seconds you're stirring it. That way it won't start to harden and get a skin on the top of it, and it will all stay nice and melted. Now I'm going to grab my fragrance oil and I'm pouring most of it into my bigger bowl and some of it into my smaller bowl. It doesn't matter if it's exact, just make sure that you're pouring most of it into your bigger bowl because your bigger bowl has more soap in it. And then I'm going to stir it. And you'll want to stir it really well. We don't want any of our fragrance oil to separate out of the soap. We want to make sure it's nice and stirred. I like to grab my spray bottle and spritz the top of the soap. What this does is it breaks up the surface tension, and if there are any bubbles in your soap or little pieces of mica that haven't mixed into the soap, that little bit of alcohol will help it mix into your soap. And don't worry, it does evaporate out. Okay, once it's all stirred together, you are ready to pour your soap into your mold. So I grabbed a cookie sheet, lined it with some parchment paper, and I put my molds both on the cookie sheet. This will make it easier to move my soap around. And then I'm going to grab my red and I'm going to start pouring the soap gently into the molds. Now, with this is the fun part. You can pour as much or as little as you want into each mold. We'll be taking turns going back and forth between the red soap and the white soap. giving us kind of a swirly look to our soap. So you can see that in some of these individual molds, I'm only pouring a little bit of soap, and in some I'm pouring a lot more in them. This will give each of my soaps a unique look. Then I grabbed my rubbing alcohol, I sprayed the top of my soap to break up any surface tension and get rid of any air bubbles. And then I'm going to take my white, and you can see I'm just pouring it in certain spots from the side. This is going to give each of our soaps a really unique look. So once I've added some white to each one, I take my spray bottle, I spray the tops of the soap again, breaking up the surface tension and kind of moving that mica around in the mold. And then I'm going to grab my red again, and I'm going to pour some more red into the mold. So I'm just going back and forth between the red and the white. This will give me 10 bars of 4-ounce soap, 4-ounce pieces of soap. So each of these little snowflakes weighs 4 ounces, and we're able to fill up 10 of the molds. I'm going to have a tiny bit left over that I'll pour into one of the leftover spaces just for me to use. And if you just pour a little bit in at a time, it's going to move those colors around so you can get bigger spots of, say, the red, or bigger, more concentrated spots of the white. And the other cool thing about this is every single time I make soap like this, they turn out different. It just really depends on what order you put the colors in and how much of each color you put in. And you're going to continue doing this until all of your soap is used up. And be careful not to overfill your molds like I just did. And you can see I just added that last bit of red into that random little mold on the side there. And then I just grabbed a spoon while my soap was still melted, and I'm going to take a little bit out of that mold that I put too much soap in, just so it's not overflowing over the side. There were a couple that I went back through and just took a little bit out and added it to my little random piece of soap. And once you have all of your soap poured in, give it another spray of your rubbing alcohol, and you're going to let it sit for several hours or even overnight. And once it has completely dried, you can see how easy it is to pop these beautiful pieces of soap out of this mold. The silicone mold makes it so easy. They just come right out, and you can see you have this absolutely gorgeous piece of yummy smelling peppermint soap. And you can see all of the different variations in the soap. You can see where there's a lot of glitter or more concentrated red, and I love how the red and white kind of swirled together, and I love how every single one of these turned out completely different. I actually made these for a friend that's giving them away as gifts, and I'm really excited to give them to her. I just am really happy with how they turned out, and they were really, really easy to make. And that's it, guys. You're all set. You have these gorgeous pieces of snowflake soap that you can give as hostess gifts, neighbor gifts. They're fun to give your friends, family, or to even just use yourself for the holidays. They're fast and easy to make, and I always think it's fun giving a homemade gift. If you have any comments or questions, please post those below. And if you like soap tutorials, please check out some of the other soap tutorials I have on my YouTube channel. I have some other fun craft ideas, ornament ideas, all sorts of fun things for the holidays, and you'll find those also on my YouTube channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. That would be awesome. And if you want to be one of the first to know when I come out with a new video, simply click on the little bell icon and you'll be notified right when I come out with a new tutorial. Thanks you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate your support and your kind comments, and we will see you guys next time.